What's up, Ragin Nation? How's it going? This is Alex. You watching the Ragin Nation show. This is just a web series where we talk about all things that matter to me in the world of movies. I got a lot of stuff to talk about just because a lot of new developments and productions have happened over the weekend. So we're going to take a little bit of time in this episode to cover all that. So the first thing we got to talk about is the Adventures of Tintin. Peter Jackson is working really hard in getting the Hobbit movies done. I've just watched The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug. It was awesome. Check out my review for it. And of course, they're going to be doing There and Back Again, which is the third and final installment in the Hobbit trilogy. And he says that after he's done with the Hobbit trilogy, he can start working on the next Adventures of Tintin. Now, I really enjoyed the first Adventures of Tintin. It was produced by Peter Jackson and Steven Spielberg was the director. However, it looks like Steven Spielberg's not going to be directing this time around. Maybe he's just serving as a producer, but Peter Jackson looks like he will be... It looks like that Peter Jackson will be in the director's chair this time around for the Adventures of Tintin sequel. And then after The Hobbit, There and Back Again is released in December of 2014, the earliest that we can see another Adventures of Tintin movie will be sometime in 2016. So that's really exciting because I love that style of adventure. It feels like an animated Indiana Jones style movie. It was a lot of fun for me and I want to see more of it. So hopefully that happens in as early as 2016. Moving on, we got to talk about Bad Boys 3, another sequel that I'm really looking forward to. And looks like Sony Pictures is moving forward with the development of Bad Boys 3 because they have gotten a writer. They just recently hired a writer, and that would be David Guggenheim. He wrote Safe House, which was a superb action film. It starred Denzel Washington and Ryan Reynolds, and I thought that that was one of the better action films of that year. And David Guggenheim wrote a great story and a great screenplay, and I think that bringing him to the table will be something of a positive thing, because I think that's what Bad Boys 3 needs. It needs a good story, even though we're really just there to watch Michael Bay direct Martin Lawrence and Will Smith blow stuff up and act really cool. But I want to see some more, I want to see better chemistry between the two, because I thought Bad Boys 2, while it had great action, really spectacular action, I didn't see good chemistry between the two. It was a pretty, I guess, a thin story. But David Guggenheim, if he could write good action for Safe House, then he could probably do the same for Bad Boys 3. Now, there's no word on Michael Bay returning as a director. He hasn't signed on anything right now. He's too busy working on Transformers Age of Extinction, so there's a lot of options open for him to be a director for a film, but there's no word on it being Bad Boys 3. Will Smith and Martin Lawrence are definitely very enthusiastic about portraying the roles again, Mike Lowry and Marcus Burnett. Jerry Bruckheimer is of course back. He just finished his deal with Disney after the failure that was The Lone Ranger, and it looks like he will be back to producing what he does best, and that is R-rated action films. I mean, he's going to be doing Beverly Hills Cop 4. He's going to be working on Top Gun with Tom Cruise. And then hopefully Bad Boys 3 will come soon. But I have a feeling that it's not going to come that soon, because they really got to work out the deal with all the schedule. They have to work out the schedules with all the actors. And of course, Michael Bay is also a very busy man. So hopefully that's happening. Speaking of another movie that I hope gets made, Fast and Furious 7 is back on the news again, and of course it's very tragic and unfortunate with what happened to Paul Walker, but the studios are really just looking at their options. They're really looking at what they can do, because Paul Walker already filmed 50% of his scenes. James Wan, of course, is just completely devastated, this being his first entry into the franchise. He had plans to turn it into a revenge movie, as opposed to what Justin Lin did and turn it into a heist movie, you know, like a full-on action movie. So what they plan to do is the production of Fast and Furious 7 could start in as early as January. It could restart in January. Now, I'm saying restart because it's possible that they could continue where they left off with some reshoots, or they might possibly do a complete just start all over again, which is kind of unfortunate. I would rather them work with what they have, but of course, it's easier said than done. The writers, gotta, you know, they have to put a lot of work into writing out how they can, you know, have Paul Walker just appear in whatever scenes he can appear in. But another very interesting development has happened, and I'm just going to take this as a rumor, but that is, it's possible that they could be getting Paul Walker's brother, who's an established stunt driver, as standing in for Paul Walker. Now, this is a very sticky situation, both between the fans and the and of course the business of making this movie, because of course the fans want Paul Walker's presence to be respected, and maybe they might feel that, well, this doesn't really respect Paul Walker's his contribution to the franchise, all right? But on the other hand, his brother, I forgot his name. I think it's Cody or Corey. I forgot. But his brother, that's his family. That's his direct blood related brother. Putting his brother in, standing in for Paul Walker, in a way is kind of respecting Paul Walker, don't you think? So this is obviously a decision that wasn't just the studios, but also the family. So if this is what they wanted, we have to respect that, and we have to acknowledge that this is what they wanted for Paul Walker, and in recognition of what he's done for the franchise. So that is an option that they're having. If they do decide to do that, they have one thing to worry about, and that is to make the CG, the face placement, very, very realistic and look good. Because once it looks bad, then it's completely disrespectful. So that's something that's a very sticky situation. But whatever the decision they choose, I mean, I'll respect it, because I do want to see this franchise continue forward, and I think that Paul Walker wants to see this franchise continue forward. Okay, moving on. We got to talk about Terminator. If you guys don't already know, Terminator 5 is not happening. Instead, it's a reboot. A reboot of the Terminator franchise is happening, and they've got a title for it. It's called Terminator Genesis. And Genesis, if you don't know what that means, it means origins, or the coming about of something, the creation of something. So Terminator Genesis, very appropriate title, and casting is going on. Now, the front runner for John Connor right now is Jason Clarke, and I really like Jason Clarke. I saw him in Zero Dark 30 and was a complete badass, and I would love to see him back. I'd love to see him in Terminator Genesis as John Connor. Now, keep in mind that Jason Clarke is quite old, actually. I mean, compared to his female co-star, which is now Emilia Clarke. Emilia Clarke was one of the candidates for Sarah Connor, along with Brie Larson, who are in their early 20s, and that's a 20-year difference between Emilia Clarke and Jason Clarke. Now, Emilia Clarke from Game of Thrones, she's cast as Sarah Connor, and, you know, did we not see that coming? I mean, come on, Alan Taylor, the director of Game of Thrones, is also directing Terminator Genesis, so you obviously want to work with people that you already work with. You have more confidence that way, because you've worked with these people, you know what they're like. But I'm really curious to see where they're going with this. I mean, Sarah Connor, 20-year difference between John Connor, her son. So I want to see where they're going with this. I have a feeling that they're not gonna make like a carbon copy of James Cameron's original Terminator film from the 80s. They're not gonna make a carbon copy of that, because a lot of people think that with a reboot, all they're really doing is just remaking the story all over again, like shot for shot, except with updated visual effects. I don't think they're doing that. I think they're changing things up and making it their own version in a way, kind of like what Tim Burton did with the Planet of the Apes remake. He called it a reimagination. So, I mean, it is a reboot, what they're doing with the Terminator franchise, but I think in a way they're going to start changing things up in a way where it's a different type of story. So definitely there's going to be a bit of time traveling involved, because there's a 20-year difference between Emilia Clarke and Jason Clarke. So that's something that's going to be very interesting, and I'm looking forward to that. Now, moving on, we got to talk about Avengers, because there has been a lot of new additions to the Avengers. Obviously, we got Scarlet Witch, Elizabeth Olsen, what's his name? Quicksilver, going to be played by Aaron Taylor Johnson. James Spader is going to be playing Ultron, most likely motion capture, and of course the voiceover work. And then now they got War Machine, or otherwise known as Iron Patriot. Colonel Rhodes, played by Don Cheadle. Don Cheadle is going to be part of Avengers Age of Ultron. Now that is a very exciting piece of news for me. He will be playing a supporting role, but it's going to be what they're calling an integral role. So I don't know how important that's going to be, but the fact is that they're adding more elements from the Iron Man franchise into Avengers. So that's pretty cool. I like where they're going with this. I don't know what they're going to do with this, but I like that they're taking elements from the other franchises that make up the Avengers and putting them into the Avengers Age of Ultron. Now, War Machine, the character of War Machine, or otherwise known as Iron Patriot, that's a pretty formidable a character. You know, that it's a guy in armor, you know, Iron Man technology, lots of guns, so I'm really excited to see where they're going to go with this. Now, the funny part, the interesting part is that I don't know if Robert Downey Jr. has actually signed on the dotted line yet. I know he was fighting for his co-stars to have a bigger paycheck, because some of them were just getting paid like $500,000 compared to Tony Stark's character. I mean, compared to Robert Downey Jr., who got $50 million just for playing Tony Stark in the Avengers. I think Chris Evans was only paid $500,000 or $1 million or $2 million, but it was a very small amount. Robert Downey Jr. was actually fighting the studios to get his co-stars to be paid more. Now, I don't know if that went through, and that also doesn't mean that. And what I also don't know is if Robert Downey Jr. has signed on the dotted line to be in the Avengers Age of Ultron. But he did mention that he didn't want to play any more individual Iron Man movies, any solo Iron Man movies. But he did still express interest in Avengers 2 and 3. Now, if Tony Stark isn't going to be appearing, or Iron Man isn't going to be appearing in the Avengers, perhaps that is the reason why they're getting Colonel Rhodes, Don Cheadle. Maybe he's going to be that replacement. Not to play Tony Stark, of course, but to play the respective roles, right? So, very, very interesting. I'm looking forward to Avengers Age of Ultron, and it's going to be big. 2015 is going to be probably the biggest year in movies. Now, speaking of another big movie, the last thing I got to talk about is Avatar sequels. James Cameron is back in the news again because he's been talking a lot about Avatar, and it turns out that Avatar 2, 3, and 4 are going to be a trilogy. I mean, you're probably thinking, of course they're going to be a trilogy. They're 3 movies, but they're being the story is being planned out as a trilogy. Now, Avatar was just a standalone film, but Avatar 2, 3, and 4 looks like they're going to be filming it back to back all at once, and they're going to take an entire year just to film it. Okay, all of 2014 or 2015 just to film it, and it's going to be coming out December 2016, December 2017, and December 2018, and it's all going to be one long film, one long 9-hour film, because keep in mind that you know that the Avatar sequels are going to be 3 hours long for each film, so, and they're going to make a lot of money. But James Cameron was just on the news recently just mentioning that this is what's happening, and I know a lot of people have mixed feelings on Avatar, but I'm excited. I'm excited to see more Avatar sequels because I love being transported to a different universe, like a larger-than-life, you know, universe and galaxy, a planet. And it really is just, you know, fantasy. It really, it's a great form of escapism to travel back to Pandora, and I think that he crafted a really unique and dynamic universe for us, the audience. So very cool. All right, so there you have it. That's all I gotta say in this video. I did my review for The Hobbit: Desolation of Smaug, so you're gonna want to check that out. And also, I'm gonna talk a little bit more about the Spider-Man franchise. Okay, stay tuned for that video. As always, if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, like me on Facebook, The Ragin Nation. Also follow me on Twitter at Ragin Nation. My name is Alex. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace. We see a mythical creature, but when Peter Jackson directs a dragon on the film, you see the grand scale of the dragon.